Welcome to the Awaken, Heal, and Thrive podcast. This episode is called How to Illuminate These Challenging Times with Love and Light. I'm your host, Benjamin Bernstein. In my last episode, I announced that I would be changing to an irregular release schedule, and now here it is 9 months later. My irregular schedule continues, so please stay subscribed so you'll see new episodes when they drop. I publish both audio and video versions of Awaken, Heal, and Thrive, so take your pick. The video versions are on my YouTube channel called Benjamin Bernstein Podcasts. If you have not already, be sure to click the link in the show notes for free chances to win a full year of my Awakening Plus online membership. I'll continue to announce new winners from time to time. In fact, I announce our May 2025 winner later in this episode. Keep your ears peeled if you've entered. This episode discusses how to maintain and strengthen spiritual awakening in order to personally and collectively master the dark energies currently rising on Earth. I speak on this topic for 23 minutes, then open it up for 90 minutes of spirited Q&A. This free public Zoom event, part of my Awakening Plus online membership, took place on May 19, 2025. Topics include using simple invocations for quick and effective spiritual awakening and shadow work, the importance of a regular spiritual practice and community support for healing and awakening, how your awakening helps everyone else awaken more easily, personal stories of encountering negative energies and processing collective trauma, how to skillfully use challenging experiences, including psychic attacks, to deepen your spiritual awakening, how dark side infiltration can be slow and subtle, how the dark side feeds on negative emotions, how to stay positive and motivated by telling the most uplifting story that fits the facts, how ayahuasca accelerates my healing and awakening, a compassionate and effective technique for dark entity extraction, how to heal disturbing energies by merging with them, the critical importance of interdependence, and how light workers can best support global awakening. Sound interesting? Let's dive in. Welcome to Awakening Plus. This is a special lecture Q&A event called How to Illuminate These Challenging Times with Love and Light. Thank you all so much for being here. And welcome to members, welcome to non-members. This is a rare exception. The video of this event will be posted afterward. I'll put it up as a YouTube video on my YouTube page and in my podcast called Awaken, Heal, and Thrive. Hasn't put anything there lately, but this will be in addition. So I want to mention I have already put up the Mesa container. So I've already called in all my divine allies of love and light and set up a safe container so that we're all protected in safe space. So let me just acknowledge broadly that the divine allies of love and light who are present include my plant spirit allies, ascended masters, archangels, Hindu deities. We've got, let me see, who else do I call in? Sacred mountains, sacred rivers, sacred beings, sacred power animals. All my allies are here, and they're all of love and light. So they're already present and set in good space for us. And we also have a lot of really conscious Awakening Plus members on the call, and I know they're holding beautiful space for us as well. So grateful you're all here. So this is unusual. I don't usually do public events that are just lecture Q&A. But, I really feel like it's important to speak out to what's happening globally right now and share my thoughts on how we might most effectively work with that. So just to dive in, after Trump took office last January, I felt a darkening of the field. I noticed that there was a very heavy oppressive energy that I felt more strongly than I ever had. And it felt like what he was doing was really empowering the dark side, not just in the US, but I think globally. So I was aware of that heavy oppressive energy. Not long after that, I do monthly ayahuasca ceremonies, and in a ceremony not long after he took office, I actually got attacked by the dark side in that ceremony. And I call it a sucker punch attack. I was just doing my, ayahuasca journey And all of a sudden, I realize this dark force has just jumped in and it's literally struggling for domination of my soul. And, this was serious stuff. You don't want to lose control of your soul. And I struggled to maintain my awakening. I literally could not do it. The attack was too strong. Fortunately, the shaman I work with is amazing, and I was also calm. This is not the first rodeo I've had with the strong psychic attack. So I walked up and he's walking around singing and rattling, and I get his attention. I say, um, I am battling for my soul at this very moment. Any help you can give me would be really appreciated. And then I went back and sat down in my seat. He came over and stood in front of me, and literally within 30 seconds, I was back. Once I was able to get back into my awakened state, the dark side couldn't affect me. And that's the strategy I've always used when under that kind of intense psychic attack. And I'll tell a little more about that as we move forward here. So right now on Earth at this moment in history, there is a very strong contrast between the forces of darkness wanting to spread their vibe and the forces of love and light wanting to spread their vibe. I'm going to make a wild guess and guess that if you're on this event, you're on the side of love and light. And I know that's definitely where I come from. So right now, even preparing, in the hour before this started, several things happened that I interpreted as the dark side trying to mess with me and throw me off, so I would not do as effective a job here. So, it doesn't matter that I've been holding embodied awakening for a long time. I don't think anyone's getting a free ride at this point. If I find someone who's easily and effortlessly holding their divinity without having to do any practices or have any challenge there, I'd love to have that person contact me and tell me how they do it. But to me, it's something that has to be maintained with really diligent practice. So, so what I'm here to help you with tonight is, first and foremost, how can you maintain your own illumination? How can you have a healing and or awakening practice? You really need both to not only hold whatever awakening you have, but to deepen it or to get there in the first place if you haven't established it. And also, many of us here are moving beyond just, taking care of ourselves. What happens with most people who start getting into a strong awakening is the spontaneous desire to serve others arises. In fact, you're in Awakening Plus twice a month. We do something called the New Earth Support Team event that is specifically about us coming together to support the global awakening that's happening. So I'll talk some about how you can help be supportive of that larger mission if you're so interested. I want to give a couple, and by the way, I'm going to keep my lecture portion fairly limited because I want to leave a lot of time. I think there's going to be a lot of Q&A, so I want to leave plenty of space for that. And whoever is trying to have autopilot, I'm afraid it's not going to work. So if you'll just turn that off, it's not going to function on this particular event. I'm sorry. However, as I said, there will be a video posted for anyone to access. And on YouTube, they also offer automatic transcription, so you'll be able to get the words there if you want them. My first real strong experience with a psychic attack was when I started doing my ayahuasca work for several years, I worked pretty exclusively with a particular shaman. I went down to Peru several times and did first some 2-week immersions where we would do 5 ceremonies. And then I was concerned because I felt the shaman was kind of turning a little dark, and yet I still felt like he could help me get to the awakening, not just a momentary awakening, which I'd already started having, where I'd be at the end of a ceremony and wow, the ceremony was, I'm in an awakened state. I am conscious as my divinity here in this body. It was awesome. And then I'd go to sleep, and then I'd wake up the next morning, it would be gone. That happened at least twice, and it was very frustrating because I wanted it to stick. So I said, okay, ayahuasca, here's the deal. I was not under the influence, but I was speaking to her internally. I said, I'll go do this double dieta. I'll go down and work with this guy for a month and stay in the jungle, and we'll do 10 ceremonies over that month. And you give me an awakening that lasts, give me an abiding awakening, and then I don't want to ever have to drink you again. And she agreed. And sure enough, I went and did the double dieta, ceremony number 8. I had the big awakening and it stuck. And I did end up drinking after that. I thought I was done. I came back and just had no interest in doing any more ceremonies. But I heard about this couple who were passing through the Asheville area where I live, who were doing these, more gentle, high vibration ceremonies. And I started attending those. And during 2 of their ceremonies, on 2 different occasions, this shaman I worked with attacked me. And all I can describe it, it's like in the last Lord of the Ring movies where the armies of Sauron are coming over the hill, just these masses of dark, warriors. That's what it felt like. And what I did in response to that was I didn't fight him because I knew that on that level I would lose. I said, okay, I just need to get into my awakening and hang out here. And so I went into my light body. I became my awakened self. And I was looking down on what they were hoping would be a battlefield, but there was no one to fight. And they hung out for a while, but when there was no action, they left. And he did that twice. And each time I went into the awakened state and just waited them out. And they left. And after 2 rounds, I guess he figured there was no fun to be had fighting someone who wouldn't fight. So he stopped messing with me. My other big attack experience was a few years later when I was apprenticing under a mushroom shaman with the idea that I'd be facilitating mushroom ceremonies, which is not happening, but it was a good training. And in one of those events, a person who was in the room gave me a psychic attack, just again, kind of a sucker punch attack. And it was a very strong attack. And this I had to do on my own. There was no one in the room who could help me. But and it's weird, all 4 of us are sitting there in my living room where I lived at the time. And in the inner world, this guy is just attacking me full on and trying to overtake me. And but again, I've managed to get my awakening and just call the love and light and just very, patiently wait for the forces of energy to clear what he was doing. And after half an hour, I was fine. And all this is happening while we're all sitting with our eyes closed and no one's saying a word. Kind of an interesting scenario, but I was able to get to awakening and make sure that wasn't a problem. Now, I'm guessing most of you here are not having things happening that are that dramatic. The dark energies aren't usually that blatant. In fact, most of the time they're extremely subtle. Rather than a big martial arts battle, it's more like, oh, we've got this clean surface and a little dust comes down and slightly dirties it, and then a little more dust comes in, and it's usually happening very subtly and behind the scenes. And I've been on this path long enough. This has happened to me more than once. If I got slack with my practices, I would start getting covered over and I'd start gradually losing my consciousness. And sometimes I've needed help where I couldn't get the awakening back. I remember one time I did a San Pedro or Wachuma ceremony, the cactus sacrament. And I'd been losing my awakening and it was a little fuzzy. And that San Pedro just, it was a very tough ceremony. I was, having a lot of purging, but by the end of the ceremony, I had my strong awakening back. So we all need a little help sometimes. So again, those are just some stories to illustrate some more dramatic manifestations of dark side energy. But as I said earlier, it's usually more subtle than that. So the key is to have a practice. As many people on the call know, I'm a big fan of the invocations that I teach. You can learn more about those at astroshaman.com/invocations if you wish. That'll link you to a video where I teach all of them in a video. And I talk about them and actually guide you through them. I'm not doing that tonight. This is not an experiential night. This is a concept night. But that's available if anyone wants to have me guide through those things. But what I've learned is that you can ask your higher self to awaken you by saying 8 words: maximum embodied awakening that serves highest good, please, relax. And then your passivity allows your higher self to come in and merge with you at the human level and bring you the awakening that it already has. And you literally just have to say the words, relax, and let it turn on. The healing method is equally simple. You notice something doesn't feel good. It could be physical, it could be emotional, just anything that feels off. You just say to your higher self, maximum healing that serves highest good, please, and you relax, and you just hold gentle attention where the discomfort is. Higher self gets in there and either flushes it away or turns it to love and light. And ayahuasca actually gave me these tools on the very first day of 2011. That was over 14 years ago, and have been teaching them ever since. And I've taught them to thousands of people and have had endless feedback about how helpful these tools are. Now, I don't care whether you use my tools or anyone else's or your own, but it's critical in these times when the darkness is really up and roaring to have some kind of practice you're doing regularly that either establishes or deepens your awakening and that can effectively flush away the heavy energy that accumulates. My experience, and based not only what I have done myself, but having worked now with over 12,000 clients as an astrologer and shamanic healer and life coach, I hear so many stories, and there's such a common theme where people are talking about how the struggles are coming up, things are happening to trigger them. And I try to help them understand, look, these triggers are your awakening invitations. The way I believe the earth plane works, at least at this point in time, is that when you're on the path of love and light, when you want to awaken, and if you want to serve, if you get to that level, then the dark side notices that, and it's their job to mess with you. And they're going to look, okay, what's their biggest wound? What's their biggest opening? What's my easiest way to get in and infiltrate? They will take that path into you. So what I've learned for me as the optimal strategy is to actually, you may have noticed in these stories I've told you about being under psychic attack, notice I didn't ever talk about fighting back. I didn't talk about defending. I basically didn't pay any attention, to the attacker in most cases. What I noticed was, where are they infiltrating? Where's the opening that they're messing with? And what do I need to do to heal that up? And I would go to the wound point and I would use my invocation or whatever tools were available. And we would, get that wound cleared and, buttoned up and whole. And then there was no more attack. So basically, the thing to do if you're being messed with is to not worry so much about the externals. Now the exception obviously is if you are in mortal danger, if you are being physically attacked, if you are being, verbally abused in a really powerful way, then you need to get yourself out of that environment if you possibly can. And obviously take immediate measures to ensure your safety, psychologically or physically or emotionally. But after that, the inner work begins. And the thing is, you can remove yourself from a dangerous environment, but if that wound is still there, if you haven't healed the trauma point, then some other dark agent will say, "Oh, we got a live one here. Let's see if we can infiltrate him." And the infiltrations will just keep coming until you do the healing that's needed to close that access point. And understand these dark side beings are just doing their job. Now, in terms of the actual mechanics, there are some humans who are actively allied with the dark side. They're consciously working as malefic agents, and they're consciously partnering with these forces. But I think in most cases, the humans are being manipulated without their knowledge. I mean, many people have really, they're trying to be on the path of being a good person, and yet they're infiltrated with dark energies, with entities, and these things are manipulating them in ways that they can't control. I've worked with many clients in relationships or marriages who talk about the behavior of their partner, and in most cases, the partner means well, and they really like to be a good partner, but they're infiltrated and are being influenced to behave in ways that are not helpful for the person they're in the relationship with. So, and what I've learned is it doesn't matter whether the person messing with you is a conscious malefic agent or if they're simply being manipulated without their knowledge or some combination. It really doesn't matter. What matters is you saying, okay, what do I need to do to first get as awakened as I can, as much as I can access, and then do the healing work to clear the access point, heal it up, seal it up, so that the dark side can't get me there. Now, does this ever stop? Not to my knowledge. I know some very awakened people. I don't know a single one, including some who appear to me to be way more awake than I am, who say they just have a free ride, they're not getting triggered anymore. I'm not seeing that happen. So right now, the energy is really up, and the dark side is very active. As I said, right now, it seems more powerful than I've ever perceived it in this lifetime. And that doesn't mean it's going to win, but it means the game is on. And if you are wanting to be a light worker, if you're wanting to help awaken the larger consciousness of the planet, or even if you just want to awaken yourself, then this is how the game seems to be played. You're going to get noticed by the dark forces. You are going to be met with some level of challenge. If you want to tell the most positive story about this, they are your initiators. Their job is to find the weak point, exploit it if they can. You'll notice your challenge, and then that is your cue. If you take it, it's okay, time to awaken and heal and deal with this. And then once you've healed it up, then you go to the next level. Now, one thing I didn't mention yet that's a really cool part of this is that every good piece of shadow work automatically gives you a deeper awakening. So in my book and in our Awakening Plus course on the invocations, I call this the great onion of consciousness. Very simply, you have a higher self, and to the human self, it looks like a big, beautiful ball of light. It feels like bliss, ecstasy, and euphoria. And it's radiating light down to your human self, but your higher self has these dark onion layers around the outer edges, which are the old traumas from this life or past lives you haven't healed yet. So it's dimming the light, not quite so much as getting in. Every time you do a good piece of shadow work or trauma healing work or whatever you want to call it, emotional healing work, one of those layers falls off. And even as you're doing the shadow work, even as you're partway through, you'll notice that it's starting to feel good. A little good energy mixes in with a more challenging energy. By the time you're done with a good healing round, normally that heavy, challenging energy is either gone or greatly diminished, and you're way more lit up. You go, wow, I feel more light, I feel more luminous, I feel more awakened, I feel more blissful. So in my experience, the absolute fastest way to accelerate a spiritual awakening is to do effective healing work, to do good shadow work. So there's a little more I want to say and then open it up for Q&A. So that's my current concept about an effective way to work with the current challenging energies. Another one of my core concepts when I work with people is tell the story that gives the most inspiring message while still fitting the facts. And in these challenging times, you could say, oh, my story is that I'm just screwed and there's nothing I can do and I may as well give up and lay down. Another story is, wow, at a soul level, I signed up for this knowing this would be happening. And I came in to be an advocate for the energies of love and light. And knowing there would be challenge, I came anyway. And I know that I can handle whatever challenge is put in front of me, that faces me, that is, hitting me. And not only can I face it, I can, overcome it, go to the next level of my awakening, and be even more helpful on the Great Awakening. I guess I'm going to say a little bit more. Even if all you ever work on is your own awakening, you're still serving the collective because we're all connected. Every one of us is connected to every other being. It's called Indra's web in Hinduism, or it's called the butterfly effect by scientists, but it's the same idea. Every person who wakes up a little more spreads the possibility of that awakening and makes it a little easier for any other person to awaken a little more easily. So everyone, even if we just worked selfishly for ourselves, that would still help the collective. Now, as I said earlier, once you get on the awakening path deep enough and you have some energy left over beyond just what's needed for your own personal work, then your intuition will start giving you opportunities for service, and each of us does it in our own way. There's no master rule book. It's just each of us gets guided spontaneously as to what we can do to serve. And it's a very magical divine intelligence that runs all this. Furthermore, some of us came in as light workers, not just to heal our own stuff, but to actually heal for the collective. So many of us are feeling the challenging energy of the collective. Once we feel it, it's in our field. And then you can just do your shadow work healing on whatever showed up as if it was yours, because as the great guru Ramana Maharshi said in India, he's passed now, but he was a very renowned guru. One of his disciples apparently asked him, Guru, what do we do about other people? And he said, there are no other people. Those beings you perceive as other humans separate from you, if you awaken up, you say, wow, they're all me. There's nothing I'm not. I'm all of it. So just wanted to share those thoughts. My hope is that I'm inspiring you. The idea of being here, that yes, it's challenging. Yes, it's more intense than perhaps it's ever been. But if you want to tell the best story, that we're here to help out, that we can meet the challenges. And one other bit I want to share based on my experience, again, working with so many people over all these years, is that you'll never get hit with more challenge than you can handle. It is a fair playing field. When you're hit with a challenge, you're being hit with a being who is not ultimately more powerful than you can be. It may feel like you can't deal with it right now. You don't have the tools or the knowledge, but sometimes you get challenged in a way that you don't know what to do. And that is your catalyst to go find a way to do things yourself with your divine allies' help that will do it, or to go seek a person who can help you, or whatever combination it takes. But the game appears to be fair, and we may hit with strong challenge, but it's not challenge that cannot be mastered in my experience. All right, so that's enough yammering from me for the moment. I would love now to open it up for questions and comments. As you can tell, I didn't have a whole script planned out. I just kind of went with the flow here. Unmuting is now allowed. So anyone on this call, all 45 of you, you can unmute. And yeah, Cherie, hi.
Hi. So I was just wondering, does this
Sure.
happen on the other side as well?
Other side being, I think Earth is its own thing. Other side would be, I'm gonna have to channel this. The allies are saying there are some inner levels where there is a similar challenge that takes place etherically, or at least the bodies there are not as physical. But there are some levels you can get to where you don't really get the dark side challenge like this anymore, but it's just subtler refinement of unconditional love and the super high vibration things. I can't really speak with authority about what happens beyond, because I'm just mainly here in 3D and accessing other dimensions. It depends what I've read a bunch of channel teachings about, what might happen afterwards in the higher levels. And some say that it splits and you go on the light side path and do those more subtle love and light and wisdom refinements. And the dark path would be more like Klingons duking it out at higher levels. So I'm not really sure, honestly. And it's a fascinating academic question, but we don't really have to know that to do what we're here to do here.
Oh, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sherry. Lisa.
Um, I was just wondering if you said that the challenges weren't necessarily so hard, but if they're harder, what can you do? I do the invocations
Mm-hmm.
and to get into embodied awakening. What can I do more that's going to help with the challenge?
So are you saying you got a challenge, you do the embodied awakening invocation, and the challenge is still there afterward?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when I like to pull out the healing invocation. The healing invocation is more specialized at clearing heavy energy. So the
Okay.
technique is you notice, all right, something's messing with me, it's still there. You say to your higher self, maximum healing that serves highest good, please. The follow-up is to simply hold consistent awareness wherever the challenging energy is, whether it's physical or emotional or whatever, and use the minimum effort needed to feel it completely. And then you got to be passive and patient. The way the healing invocation functions is the invocation gets your higher self on the job, but it only does the healing as long as your human self is holding attention there. If your mind wanders, the healing will stop. So it's a partnership.
Okay.
But the human is limited to simple awareness. And also you want to focus on the feeling. There may be thoughts and images, but focusing on those actually won't help so much. What I've learned over many years of doing this is it's focusing on the actual somatic sensation, whether it's a physical sensation or an energetic sensation. You just be with that. And that's what most quickly stirs it up and flushes it away or changes it to love and light.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Great question, Lisa. Thank you. All right. Anyone else got a question or a comment or anything they'd like to throw in here?
Hi, Ben.
Hey,
and
Tara.
I just wanted to share an experience about maybe a year before the pandemic happened. I had a whole year of like nightmares.
Mm.
I call them nightmares, but I feel they were psychic attacks because every night it was as if my eyes were open and I'm in my bedroom but my body is completely like I couldn't move.
Mm.
And I could just see, I often saw demons. I saw all kinds of forms, all kinds of distorted, weird energies, and it really gave me a lot of issues, obviously, and insomnia. And then I finally got a message from the divine saying, just stand up for yourself and everything will be fine, and hold
Mm.
the light. You're always protected. So what I started doing was I started to stand up to the demon or whatever was coming in that vision, and I would
Mm.
just say, okay, like I'm not scared of you, I'm light. um you can't do anything to me, go away. And then they would completely disappear,
Mm.
and it was done, and they never bothered me again. I never had that situation. I don't know if it was preparing me for this grand shift, or I don't know, but it was I like every night I would go to bed and I would have this thing where I mean, they call it sleep paralysis, but I was vivid, like everything. I could see the whole room, as if my eyes were open.
Mm.
Could not move. I could not do anything. And then once I stood up to them and just didn't show any fear, they completely disappeared. So it was they were feeding on the fear. And
Yes.
instead of showing fear or even aggression or anger, it was just like go neutral and show and be in your light. And they just completely had no power over me. Or
Correct. Exactly. Yeah, let me extrapolate on that. That's a great strategy. So basically, the stories I told about being attacked, once I was in my awakening, I couldn't be hurt. And you basically, by saying I am light, you affirmed your divinity. And I'm guessing you went into your divinity and you didn't just say it, you were there. You were conscious
yeah,
as your divine being, right?
yeah,
And the divine being that we are is at a higher level of vibration and a higher level of power than any dark stuff that can mess with you. So if
right,
you're actually solid in your awakening, you're basically invulnerable. These things can't mess with you.
right,
Okay.
right,
So that's why, when I teach, the people in Awakening Plus, invocations, and so I say, don't just do this once in a while. I mean, start every morning, get into embodied awakening and refresh it. If it slips, do not settle for less. And it feels so much more amazing than just regular conscious. Why would you ever not want to have it? Is my own thinking. And it takes virtually no time and effort to get it working and refresh it. Um, um, you inspired me to say a little bit more about my perceptions of Trump, which is again, I don't know if he is like a conscious dark practitioner or if he's not aware of the dark forces that are working through him, but there's dark energy one way or the other. And what I perceive he does is, one thing about his style is he's constantly trying to make people angry or scared.
yes,
And his whole style is how many people all around the planet can he get upset in some way,
yes. Hmm.
you know? And basically then anyone on the planet who gets upset by what he does, he can actually siphon their power away
Exactly.
to the extent that their lower three chakras have put out, discordant energy. That's his buffet, And it's not just him. I mean, this is what dark practitioners or people being used by the dark have done throughout history. He's just the most obvious example right now. Okay.
Yeah,
So he's just a really visible model of what, millions of dark practitioners do and are doing.
yeah,
Okay. So yeah, so that's why now this doesn't mean you failed if you got angry or afraid. I mean,
right,
you're having the experience that you're having, but know that just because right now you're in a conscious where that's happening doesn't mean that's the way it always has to be.
right,
I can promise anyone, and this is available to any human, this is a birthright, who can get to that awakening and at first just touch it once in a while. But if you can get that where it's like you're normal, and again, that's what this embodied awakening invocation can do. It can get you there quickly and easily and refresh it within seconds if you just ask for it. This is the best tool I'm aware of that a person on their own can use to get there and stay there. And if anyone knows of a better tool, please tell me about it. I've been asking this question for 14 years, but haven't had anyone come back with a superior method. But I'd love to know it if it's out there. But just stay awake and then you're much harder to mess with. And then when, I read the news, I'm keeping up with all the stuff Trump is doing, but I'm able to read about it and not get upset by it.
right.
And that's the key. And if you can be aware of it and then just hold peaceful consciousness in response to it, then that in the inner world kind of weakens him a little bit. my belief in terms of what can we do to move the earth in a better, more light-filled direction, it's mainly an inside job.
Exactly.
It's a lot less about going out and protesting or taking external action than it is just getting to your own awakening online, and then in the inner world doing the inner processes that fill the subtle planes with love and light. And I think the real work is inside more than outside. Also, another critical point I want to make, and thanks for getting me started on this topic, is that you can only help to the degree that your own consciousness allows. You can be all full of desire. Oh, I want to bring out the golden age. But if you're not awake or just minimally awakened, you'll have limited impact. But a person who's got a really deep, strong, potent awakening doing the same thing can be hundreds of times more impactful in their actual effectiveness.
Right.
So this is not to disparage anyone this is not to rank or say anyone's better or worse. We all should do what we can at the level we're at, but just know that the constant deepening of awakening and the increasing empowerment of your divinity makes you a vastly more effective love and light agent than if you're just a little bit awake or not there very consistently. And to me, that's one reason I drink ayahuasca every month, is
Right.
because nothing I do, heals and awakens me more fast, more quickly, and more efficiently and more profoundly than that particular work. I do a lot of invocations too, and internal family systems therapy and other things too. But for me, the ayahuasca is like, the rocket booster that makes it all go way faster. It's not a path for everybody. But each person should find for themselves what is my fast track to take that awakening and healing into the highest gear possible if I really want to get on board. Because in case you haven't noticed, the game is on. We're in the midst of it right now. And we don't have time to have a leisurely multi-year, maybe I'll awaken one day attitude, in my opinion. I think, of course, people have that free will choice, but my own bias is, let's awaken as quickly as we can. Let's heal with maximum speed and effectiveness. Let's not take years to do a trauma healing that we could do with another technique in 30 minutes and have it done,
Right.
So that's my own bias there. And I know that was a really long response to what you said, but
Well, what I want to ask you as well is, you said when you were being attacked that there were times you couldn't do anything. Like
yes, it was too strong for me to handle.
without the shaman helping you.
Right.
So what would have happened if the shaman wasn't there? My question, how,
the answer I'm getting is that the attack. Okay, that's a theoretical question, and I can only speculate. What the first thought that came to my mind was, it wouldn't have happened outside that container.
Right.
But even if it had, as long as I wasn't, knocked dead or disabled, I would have, if I, got hit and knocked down and wasn't able to do it, then I kept trying to get back my wick and I couldn't do it, then I would be reaching. In fact, there have been times when, I would be in a state where I'm overwhelmed. I can't do it. In fact, now that I think about it, this has happened. It was a year or two ago. Fortunately, I have a few friends who are really powerful shamans. All right. And I was in a state where I was stuck and I wasn't getting myself out. And I had to call my friend and say, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I need help. I'm so overwhelmed with darkness. I can't get myself out." And he worked with me on the phone for about 20 minutes and cleared me up and we were good. So this is another critical lesson of this time, which is interdependence. I've talked a lot about, being able to do it on your own, which you do to the capacity that you can. But one of the whole reasons for Awakening Plus existing is because we lift each other up. We come into these containers where there's many powerful awakened people or people who are working toward that, who are collectively supporting each other. And that's why ayahuasca ceremonies are done in groups and not one-on-one with one person, one shaman usually. It's because the whole group energy is holding space for everyone else. So it's most of my life was I can do it on my own. I don't need any help from anyone, right? But what this path has taught me on the shamanic path is sometimes you need a little help from your friends and you cannot do it solo. So one of the teachings is sometimes interdependence. You need to be hooked up with people who can help you and you can help, because there is tremendous power in numbers. the law of one channel material says that when you're doing spiritual work, every additional person logarithmically increases the power. It's
Right.
not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. And each new person then vastly magnifies the power of that group field. And if that's correct, that's an incredible multiplier, So yeah. So if you can't do it on your own, as long as it didn't kill you or totally disable you where you can't make a phone call, just reach out for someone who can help you.
And when it happened to you, were you physically unable to move either? Like, what was your experience? Was it
Are you talking about when I had to call my friend on the phone?
when you were in the ceremony and you were
Oh, I was able to move. But what
feeling
was happening is I got sucker punched with the energy. I could
energy?
feel the dark side trying to wrest control of my soul. And I don't know
Uh,
how else to describe it, but it was it
right,
was it was it was existential. It was clear if I don't master this, then I am just screwed. You know,
right.
this is the terrible outcome if I don't master this. I was, even while aware of the internal battle taking place, I was able to get up, walk over to the shaman, tell him what I needed.
Okay.
And because this was like at minimum my fourth major psychic attack that I'd ever had, I knew the territory a little bit. And weirdly, I was not emotionally distraught because I knew what was happening. I knew it could be dealt with. I
Right.
knew that this shaman is very powerful and he could handle it. And so I just did what I had to do and was very calm and kind of cool the whole time until we got me awake again.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, again, I've been drinking ayahuasca for what, 20 years.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
I
that's
have
all
some experience with the inner world and some knowledge of how to work with it. Yeah.
amazing.
Great question. Thank you, Kira. All right. Who else has got a question or a comment? Oh yeah, Stu.
I wondering for people that are just starting their awakening experience and such, much like myself, probably. I'm at a lower level, but people that aren't aware of any of this, I'm wondering, how do you know when you're actually being attacked? So, if you're kind of uninformed, is it something that, there's indications that you need to be aware of?
Um, well, it depends how you define attack. Basically, any noticing of diminished vitality or more irritable emotions or just anything that makes you feel off might be a very subtle kind of, that's probably too mild to be called an attack. If there's an attack, I mean, look, if, I remember when I was in middle school, I was walking back to class and I was walking by this guy and I got sucker punched. I totally didn't, I mean, all of a sudden I got hit right there and I lost my breath. I knew I'd been sucker punched. Okay. It's really kind of like if you're being psychically attacked, you'll know it. You don't have to wonder. It's obvious that something is very wrong and that you're being very challenged. And if you're under that level of stress, then, chances are that's what's happening.
So if I get put like under control of something, of a person with dark energies, that mean I'm going to wind up on Trump's cabinet or something then? Or
Uh,
I mean, do they kind of take control of you and use you for their own purposes?
Again, I guess that's a possibility where one could be so influenced and taken over that one becomes the pawn of a dark magician. That certainly can happen. But I even when I've worked with people who've been really infiltrated and really covered over with dark stuff, I haven't witnessed that myself. Usually they just feel so oppressed and beaten down psychically that they're in just a really horrible state. And often they may be manifesting signs of mental instability at that point, if they're that taken over. But I've never seen someone who is literally an automaton being moved around by another person. That I think would be pretty rare. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I wouldn't expect that level of stuff. Also, let me remind you that the challenges we get are proportional to our level. So as someone is kind of near the earlier stages of awakening, as you're describing yourself, you're going to be hit with relatively mild challenges that are appropriate to your level of consciousness. It's when you go deeper into, I didn't start getting hit with these major psychic attacks I've been describing until I'd already achieved an abiding awakening. And, what I have learned, and my story about it is I'm being given initiations, extreme sudden challenge at times is what's needed to see, okay, can I handle this? Can I master this level of challenge? And then that kind of opens me to the next level of service, the next awakening where I can be more helpful and more, powerful, or whatever you want to call it. So I wouldn't worry too much about anything like that. That's more for horror movies.
I wasn't really worried about it. I guess I'm just more curious. I guess
No,
I'm
it's
curious
good.
by nature. One
Yeah.
other thing with the awakening, then you had mentioned about doing the invocation for it, like every morning and stuff. So is that another way of helping to increase it if you're doing that awakening every day, daily or more than daily even, that that helps raise you up?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, my instruction is, if one does that practice and just first thing every morning, as soon as you can, you say maximum embodied awakening that serves highest good, please, and relax and just let the energy come in. That will give you the strongest awakening you can hold at that moment. And then, as you know, the protocol after that is if you ever notice it slipping and the qualities that you can, I say there's a 4-item checklist to let you know if you actually hit awakening. If there's no mental chatter, no challenging emotion, you're peaceful, and it's all effortless, just holding itself, then you're in embodied awakening. Now, yes, there's deeper awakenings available, but that you're at least at a baseline awakening if that's true. And then if at any point during the day, any of that isn't happening, there's mental chatter, there's challenging emotion, I'm not peaceful, then you can just do the 8 words again out loud or mentally, leave a moment of absolute passivity to let your higher self come back and merge with you again, and it'll pop you right back in. And, my members already know this, but people who kind of get the hang of this tool, they can usually invoke embodied awakening and be in that state in 5 or 10 seconds. And even on a tough day where they have to refresh a lot, they might spend a grand total of 5 or 10 minutes, just a few seconds at a time, calling the awakening back and letting it come in. It's a very yin approach. You basically delegate the awakening to the higher self because it's already awake. When it comes in and merges with you, then you get its consciousness. It's driving you at that point. It's just you one level up, and you have all those wonderful attributes, as a gimme. And having spent decades on paths of awakening that were a lot of effort and strenuous activities and hours a day of all these practices, and knowing, wow, I can get an actual better outcome in a few seconds just by doing this. At that point, I gave up all the effort practices because, wow, this has a better outcome and it's easier. So that's my own choice at this point. I honor whatever path a person chooses. But if I'm become aware, like I keep saying, if someone shows me a technique better than the invocations I've been teaching, I'll drop my invocations in a heartbeat and adopt that better method. I'm always open to the superior method, because I always want to be the most efficient I can be at my healing and awakening journey. So I hope I didn't tangent too far off your question there, Stu.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great questions.
As always.
All right. Who else has got something? While we're waiting, I want to catch up with the chat. Janelle typed, "Thank you, Benjamin, for the invocations you have shared. Amazing." She said, "I remember that fear and experience when I was like 2 or 3. I guess she's talking about a very early experience of challenge. Then Piera did speak, but she also, no, Annie typed this, forgive me. And she addressed it to Piera. She said, "I have similar experience with sleep paralysis. I was taught by Benjamin and the lady who taught the Dreamweaver class in Awakening Plus to blast it with golden light and create a bubble of light around my house and command it to go away. The being disappeared and I have not experienced sleep paralysis since." Wow, great insight there, Annie. And then Piera replied to her, "Yes, that's exactly what I did several times, and then it all stopped." Angie said, "Yes, I've been sucker punched like right in the gut, and it's very noticeable." Actually, this reminds me that I think the first time I had an inner experience of darkness was this was way before I even started drinking ayahuasca. I was still back in Oklahoma where I lived until I was 41. And I had ended a relationship that had turned very challenging, and had been made aware that my ex had, I was living in a place that had a hot tub, but it was indoors, which she didn't know. And apparently, a mutual friend told me later that she had come with a bag of cement and had been planning to pour it into the hot tub in this house I was renting. Um, of course, she couldn't get into the house. She didn't realize it was an indoor hot tub. And then I checked and went out to the curb, and sure, there was the bag of cement just sitting there unopened. But that night, I was just kind of sitting up in bed and I was letting my mind wander. And I started idly fantasizing about getting revenge on her. And I started thinking, well, what nasty thing could I do to get her back for that? For trying to put concrete in my hot tub. And even though I didn't really have much psychic sight then, I saw as clear as day these two malevolent beings just popped into my field, and they were just classic horror movie. They're just grotesque, drippy faces and ghoulish looking beings. And they'd heard my thoughts. Ooh, how can we help you? And I said, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. And fortunately, I'd been on the spiritual path, and even I was still a baby compared to, I guess didn't have much, but I was okay. No, actually, I walked the path of love and light. Thanks for your offer, but I'm not interested. Please leave. And when they saw I wasn't interested, they left without any further hassle. But that was my first inner experience with dark beings, perceiving my dark thought patterns and wanting to capitalize on that. So it's like they're always around, they're always aware. Even when I hold ceremonial space, I'm often aware of the dark beings just outside the perimeter looking for a way in. It's just what they do. It's just a fact of our reality. So that's, and in case Awakening Plus members are wondering why, when I do an event, do I always create such a strong container, call in so many allies, and really make a big deal about we've got a protective field that only lets in energies and beings of love and light? That's why, because I've seen those dark beings, and they'll get in if they can, and I want everyone who works with me in a sacred container to be protected and to do their work safely. In Peru, there's anytime a shaman does a ceremony there, they always create a really powerful field if they know what they're doing, because there will be other dark shamans who will try to mess with them and get into their ceremonies and mess with the shaman and their participants. It's like, the Wild West in the inner planes down there. So, it's something you have to have some awareness of if you're going to be holding ceremonial space and be able to deal with that. That was a tangent.
I have a thought.
Yes, Stephanie.
The one thing, I mean, I understand and for the most part agree with your view on Trump, but the thing that what really gets me is that he was actually elected into office twice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know, that's the thing that I can't quite wrap my head around.
Well, that's probably a discussion for another time. I've read many books and lots of podcasts on how he skillfully manipulated those who voted for him and told them what they felt resonance with. It's easy for an autocratically inclined person to stir up fear and the darker emotions and have people kind of vibe with you on that level. So that,
I don't know. I tend to think they're just as dark as he is,
Well, again, that's probably not something we want to dive into here. That's really
Okay.
a side topic for my purpose for this evening. But
Okay.
I understand why you feel that way, and let's just we
Okay.
can always leave it at that. But
Okay.
you make a good point there, Stephanie. Thank you.
And then the other thing is, part of the thing that I get with what's going on with the world is like there are so many people now. I mean, there are a lot of people like you out there that are doing this type of work and doing it well and successfully. And there are those that feel because we're in the age of Aquarius and we're moving through the Kali Yuga that the planetary vibration is raising.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wonder if, in order to correct an imbalance, the pendulum swings the other way.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's going to be allowed to happen without some resistance. And this is the time of resistance towards that.
That could be happening. I honestly don't know. I've wrestled with this one for years, trying to understand. And as an astrologer, I'm looking at the outer planets and their alignments and all that. And I just, the weird thing is, the more deep the more deeply I awaken, the less certainty I have about many things, and no need to know. For me, there's all kind of stories available. The golden age is guaranteed no matter what. It doesn't matter what we do, or we could say it's all going to hell and there's nothing to do to stop it. Other people say, well, what happens is up to what the humans do, and what if enough humans hold the right consciousness, we will go to golden age. If not, it'll spiral down. I don't even know. All I know is, regardless of what the scenario is, if a person's on the path of love and light, I don't know of a better individual strategy than cultivating your own healing and your own awakening. If you're called to serve beyond yourself, then you will absolutely get the intuitive guidance showing you what your service opportunities are, and you can take them or not. And I don't know of a better way to approach the reality we're facing, whatever theory you believe about it. So to me, I'm comfortable taking that action path because it seems to be the optimal path no matter what the actuality is. And here's the thing, it has even occurred to me, what if there's a bunch of multiverses and the reality we individually face is the one we believe is going to be real? What if it's the whole reality is customized to your belief about it? Wouldn't that be right? So whatever the case, I'm going to be, unless I have a radical shift of attitude, I'm going to be cultivating my healing and awakening, and I'm going to be supporting the great global awakening as I can and helping others who want help. And that's all I know to do, really.
Okay. All right. That's just kind of what I was thinking this evening. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Those are great contributions, Stephanie. Thank you. Jeannie's up, but Jeannie, there's a lot of typing in the chat and I want to get that verbalized. So if you can hang on just a minute.
Sure.
Let's see. Someone said, have you seen all of Medical Medium Anthony Williams' Spiritual Lights of Free Will Tools? I have not, but sounds like they might be worth checking out there. Chi says, I have unstable internet, unable to speak aloud. This is such a potent topic. Well, Chi, you can type if you prefer. It looks like she has actually lower down. And there's a link there in the chat to Medical Medium if anyone wants to click that. Someone on an iPhone said he did a 7.5-hour Angels and Demons podcast, and the tools are related to that. The game of chess apparently vanquishes demons. Interesting. This is all new information for me. Then Chi says, I was given a tool to help me when I was taking my baby steps when faced with the malevolent and unable to shift to light. Shift into neutral, then at least your life force cannot be taken. Embodied awakening takes it to the next level. Fascinating. Nancy thanked Chi. Stephanie typed, I have been physically taken over, a hell of a battle. I learned a lot. There are dark entities that have the ability to jump on and in you. If you're fragmented, it's easier for them to get in and on you, and they do not play fair. Well, they're playing fair in the sense that they're doing what they're able to do. For them, that is fair play. So I spoke earlier in this event about how to work with that, so I won't repeat that information. Lisa said, same here. She said, I'm fighting a demon. Yeah, again, if you're on the path of awakening, if you're on a path of shamanic empowerment, you will meet dark players. That is how the game is set up. If you're on the path of love and light, part of your awakening and getting solid in that is to face challenges to that and learn how to master them. Again, my experience has been the game is rigged fairly. You are going to be able to master whatever you're facing. If you don't have the tools now, then you'll be able to seek and call in those tools or helpers that will be necessary for you. That's my belief anyway. Okay, Jeannie, you're up.
Yeah.
You're patient.
Hi. I thought I would share a story of I had been in my awakening for just a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a very interesting encounter. So I was in a class that covered not these things, but, just awakening type topics. And I was brand new, just brand new. I didn't know anything. I hadn't been I'd come from the world of science where they, do not, they frown on these kinds of things. They think they're hilarious.
Yeah.
And so I had a woman that she had been trained by dark forces, and she was quite talented at it. And later I learned how talented she really was, and she was used for good later on. Her skills, but she had just come from prison, and she was kind of in the dark place in a lot of different ways. And she got jealous. She thought that I wanted to take away this guy that she had a crush on. And I was married, so there was no danger of such a thing. She just got it in her head.
Mm-hmm.
So she was very talented. She was a spider. I don't know how else to describe it. She would have little baby spiders come down from the ceiling, and I literally saw this several times, and they would possess different people in the class.
Huh.
So what happened with me is I had taken feng shui, and I knew how important it was to clear a room. And then when you clear a space, you need to fill it with love and light, because the universe abhors a vacuum, and it'll fill it with something, and it might not be something you want.
Right.
So fill it with love and light. Well, I had just cleaned this room, and I got a phone call from this person, and I felt something, we were all newbies in this class, and so I thought she called for some help or something, but she called to send me a not nice thing. And I didn't know it, but I sure felt it. And so over the next few days and the next few weeks was quite a journey. I was sleeping in the bed with my husband, and we would there's something in the attic. I'm like, I know, I hear it too. And it would beat on the pipes like your classic scary movie, knock, knock, knock on the pipes up in the attic.
Right.
And, or something. And we went up there and was like, what pipe is he banging on? Or are they banging on? Because we couldn't even find what pipe it could have been.
Pipe
And
down.
What'd you say? What was
Pipe
that?
down.
Yeah, that's what I should have done. So then they came downstairs, and the next few nights they were in the kitchen, and they actually broke a dish.
Wow.
Yeah. And we were terrified. And he was terrified. And so I went to the group where I was a newbie, and there was a priest, and he didn't live that far away. And I said, do you think you could help me? Because I drive into my driveway and immediately I have a dark cloud hanging over me. And so I know there's really something bad here, and I drive away and I'm okay. And I said, could you come and help me? And he said, no, I'm too scared. I'm not coming to your house. He said, there's no way I'm coming to your house.
Oh, the exorcism division. Yeah.
It scared me even more. So he told me some things to do, and they didn't work. And I really thought they were going to work. I mean, I really did. I mean, I was a newbie. You tell me something's going to work, I'll believe you.
Right.
So it didn't. And so then he said, well, come to my house. I'll give you some things. So he gave me some little magic tools, and I brought him back in the house, and I did it, and they were still here. And I said, I don't know what to do. And he goes, well, I don't either. So I was basically on my own, terrified. And so was my husband. And I sat down in the living room. I had taken feng shui, and I learned dowsing rods. So I had dowsing rods. So I said, watch, George, this is how they work. And he's not into this kind of thing at all, but he was so scared. He would listen to anything at that point. And I said, watch, this means yes, and this means no. And so I asked, are there unseen, unwanted negative energies? And it said yes. And I said, how many of them are there? It was like 4 or 5. And I was so scared. And that's when you sometimes have the most power, when you just don't know what to do. Your little brain quits thinking and your heart takes over. And you become like a child, and because you're so scared. And I said, God, please help me. I do not know what to do. And all of a sudden, 4 pillars of light came. And I can't tell you now, it was so long ago if I had my eyes open or closed, but they surrounded the room. And I didn't know what those 4 pillars of light were at the time. And they cleared it. Wow. And then I said, George, watch this. And I did the dowsing rods. And I said, is the house clear now? And it said, yes. And so those 4 pillars of light, I later learned when I was being taught about archangels. They're the 4 archangels.
I thought so.
The 4 directions. And so then I had a very close relationship with those. And so I kept on in the group for years. And when I was taught how to clear negative, unwanted energies, like entities and the like. And there's, oh gosh, we learned all kinds of names. There's like 2,000 tribes of the negativities.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and who's going to learn 2,000? I mean, nobody. So when I learned to clear, it's like, I don't care if you're a black claw or whatever. I didn't care what the names were. And one was called a duck something. And I was like, I really don't care what they are. I just want them gone. And when I'm clearing other people, I want them gone. So I got kind of arrogant over the years. And I thought, I'm pretty good at this. I'm not scared. People go, oh no, she's doing something big. Everybody move and give her room. And I'm like, it's really not that big a deal, guys. You can do it. Anybody can do it. You just have to ask for them to be cleared. And I did my little protocol and whatnot. And then something changed over the years, and darker energies entered this planet. It's happened several times. And different people in government way before Trump were part of it. And they would have different things happening. And so I would run into one or two things I couldn't clear. And it really threw me. So that's when I learned the other most important thing that I wanted to mention that you already brought up is we're interdependent. We need each other. And that's like a lesson we need to learn. It's like, well, why do I need to go to the doctor? Why do I need to go to this massage therapist? Why do I need Benjamin? How come I can't just do this? I know stuff. And it's because we need each other. We need the group. And the group energy is so cool and it's so wonderful. And, when two or more are gathered in his name, we've all learned this early on, those of us who were brought up in the Christian religion. So just even two people is way more powerful, exponentially more powerful than just one person. So if I don't have another person, then I just call on the divine. All the allies that Benjamin calls in, say, please, all the allies Benjamin calls in, come now. And ask them to help. And so since it happened to me so early on in my journey, I just have a question, Benjamin. Do you think that perhaps I knew about these things in other lifetimes and I was very talented at the beginning and that thing happened to me so that I would realize I could do this? And then I got and then it had to teach me, you know what? There's another lesson called, interdependence. So what do you think about that?
I'm getting a channeled yes to that. That was true, what you just said.
That some people may have done this in other lives where they had to deal with these things.
Well, that you did specifically. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure many others have too. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, I just wanted to share that in case anybody actually gets scared. You just have to ask. You really just have to say, help, and help me now.
Yeah. So I'll extrapolate on that a little bit. One saying I believe is a shaman is only as powerful as their allies. What's super clear to me is Benjamin, working as an independent, isolated human, is puny and powerless. But if Benjamin can call these amazing divine allies of love and light and have them come through and do stuff, then really cool stuff can happen. So when you awaken enough, you realize, wow, this human part of me is just the tip of the iceberg of what I am. And once your primary awareness becomes your divinity, your pure light being, and that is the main you that you're aware of, and you see your human not as your primary, but as sort of an offshoot, a temporary extension, that's a game changer. That brings me to another thing I learned in ayahuasca ceremonies. Ayahuasca has been an incredible teacher for me over the many years. And what she taught me is that when I'm in ceremony or anything's going on and I'm feeling a challenging phenomenon in me, there's actually, this is pretty much the healing invocation anyway. But before I even knew the invocation, what she taught me to do was to get into my awakened self and just merge with the challenging phenomenon, whatever it is. If it's a feeling or an entity or whatever it may be. But if you're awakened, you are superior to any dark being that's messing with you. You are of a higher vibration and greater power because you are awakened. And what I learned in ceremonies time after time was I'd feel this challenging stuff happening. I would simply place my awareness and merge with the challenging phenomenon. And That's all there is to it. I just merged with it. I became it. I did a conscious merging with the phenomenon, knowing that as the awakened being, I was the superior force and it couldn't dominate me. I mean, it's in me already. I got nothing to lose. Right. So I just go into it. And when divinity meets a lower vibration dark thing, only two things can happen. Either that dark thing leaves or it turns to love and light. Really, those are the only two options when a superior awakened energy meets a lower vibration dark thing. And that's what I was taught to do over many years of ayahuasca ceremonies. And the healing invocation is a very kind of the same thing. I feel a challenging phenomenon, and I call the awakened part of me to deal with it, even if I'm not there yet. Even if I, the human, am not awakened yet, I can call the awakened part of me and it can come in and deal with it. When I just say maximum heal that serves highest good, please, and it just goes there and again flushes it out or changes it to love and light. So I'd never actually made a direct correlation. Yeah, go ahead.
There's one thing that you taught us before that I want you to elaborate on, but first I want to tell something else I left out of that story.
Okay, please. It's a great story.
That has a point. That has a point. So when they were beaten up in the attic, and they were beating on the pipes or whatever they were beating on, and then they broke stuff in the kitchen, and then they came closer and closer. They were in our bedroom. Mm-hmm. And then they would stand at the foot of our bed and terrify us. And it kind of looked like that Balrog in the Lord of the Rings a little bit, only really small, or not that big, and tiny. And so, like the size of a person. And they would just stand there and watch us and terrify us and feed off the fear is what I think they could have been doing. Yeah. But what was funny is that we would pull the sheets over our heads and we would say, okay, they can't get us if we're covered in the sheets, and don't let your foot or your hand hang off the bed. Make sure you're under the sheet. And we would sleep like that. And because we believed it would work, then I think it worked. It's possible. I don't know. It was terrifying. That was my point. But it was
before
the funniest...
you continue, you set up a perfect joke. Do you know what it would have been if the Balrog had pulled the sheets away from you? You know what you two would have been?
What? Scared
sheetless. I thought it was funny.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, please go ahead.
Too. Oh my gosh. So yeah, that's a good one, Benjamin. So that was pretty sharp. So the thing that you've emphasized before that you might want to go into a little bit further is that you've taught us that if we do the shadow work, if we do an IFS and we find a wounded part and we heal it, that sometimes that's all it takes to have an entity go away, because that's how they got in, because you had a little wounded part. And so our soul is like very, very fine, delicate, subtle tissue. I mean, and it can unfold. And when we're doing our embodied awakening ceremonies together, our actual soul field gets a little larger and it unfolds. And then we calm down after and we get back in our body and it pulls in. And in that folding, sometimes when they're working on me, I'm unfolded usually, and they clean up something like a little area. You know how if you put a curling iron to plastic, what would happen? Well, when sometimes if you've had dark entities from other lifetimes, which almost all of us have, or this lifetime, there's a spot that's corrupted. And so the allies can just fix that. They're fantastic technicians and they're so fast and they can fix it really quick. And so if you have a wounded part from when you were 20s or 30s or 40s or whenever, that can create a little boo-boo and they fix it. And so maybe you can say, if you regularly do shadow work, if something pops up, do it. Maybe you can emphasize that a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and be quietly and talk.
Well, you've covered that so thoroughly. I'm not sure what I would have to add unless you have a specific question.
Maybe you can tell everybody just real quick what IFS is, because maybe they don't know what we're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, and I can put it in the specific context you were.
Yeah. Okay.
So, IFS is internal family systems therapy. I am trained but not certified in that, and I've been doing it with clients for years. So I say I do IFS inspired work. But IFS is technically a form of psychology. It's been around for more than 40 years. And its premise is that every human has one self and many parts. And the self is they don't say this, but it's the awakened self, the higher self, in my opinion. And then even the most sane and high functioning humans have dozens of little subpersonalities. We've all had the experience, oh, well, part of me wants to do this, another part wants to do that. And there's a third part is a third opinion. And those are your parts chiming in. And it's best to think of a part like a full-on little human inside you with a full personality. It's not just a thought, not just an emotion, but a full-on little being there. And some of them are healthy and high functioning, and they help us out. Others are wounded and traumatized and split off. And what IFS is especially good at doing is helping you get to the wounded parts and unburdening them, because there's no bad parts. There's just, awesome parts that have gotten traumatized or covered over with heavy stuff. And IFS gets in there and uncovers them and cleans them up. And then you can have them call in more of what they want, good stuff. And then you bring them back home to your inner family of healthy parts. Now there's a very specialized protocol for using IFS to clear dark entities, which I've been doing now for a while. For many years as a shaman, I would do a entity eviction protocol, and that was the best I knew. But when I learned the IFS version, this works even better, and it's much more gentle and compassionate. It's not forceful. It's basically, as Jeannie kind of hinted at, if you've got an entity, you have a wounded part of you that let it in. Just like that story I told, I was contemplating doing something nasty to my ex, and these dark beings showed up and wanted to know if they could help me. Sometimes, especially if you're very young and you're in a very difficult situation, you're not getting the support you need, and some being says, "Hey, I can help you with that. Why don't you let me in, and I'll help you with this challenge you're having." As a very young being, that seems like a great deal, and you got nowhere else to turn. Hell yeah, come on in and help me out. I'm all alone here. I'm not getting the help I need. So these entities then stay attached to that wounded part. And what IFS does is when you get to the part of you, the wounded part that's allowing the entity access, then you can have a little discussion with it, say, "Hey, I understand you're allied with this dark entity, and I totally understand why you did it. Makes perfect sense. It was the right move at the time. But feel me, self, and see if you like my vibe better or the vibe of this dark entity better." And I've never, in myself or working with a client, had a wounded part say they like the entity better. They always prefer the feeling of the self, the awakened part. And then you say, "Well, hey, this dark entity, I know it's helping you in some ways, but it's also taking from you. It's taking energy, isn't it?" And they always go, "Yeah, well, there's a price to pay, of course." And I say, "Well, you know what? I can give you even better help, and I won't ask anything from you. I'll give unconditionally." And then you let it, you have it once again feel the vibe of the entity it's attached to, and then you have it feel you, self, and let it choose. What do you like better, the feeling I'm giving you or the entity? They say, "Well, actually, you feel better." I say, "Well, why don't you let go of that thing and let me take care of you?" And if the part is still reluctant, you can even go, "You know what? Let's make it reversible. Money back guarantee. You let the entity go for now, then complete our healing process and come on home. And after you get reintegrated, if you still want that entity, we'll call it back." And that's usually a hard thing to say no to for a wounded part. And I've never had a wounded part go through the healing cycle and get reintegrated who then still wanted the entity back. They never do. And then there's a whole protocol of working with the entity once it's floating outside you. You basically say, "Oh, you can go up into the light. There's a being of light waiting to help you up if you want to purify and become a light being now. Or if you want to stay dark, that's fine. Just you got to go do it somewhere else. You can't be here anymore." And there's actually an additional step where you call forth all of the slaves, servants, minions, and related dark beings that were serving that larger dark entity. And you call them out and they all come and assemble. And then you say, "Hey, your boss is gone. You're not controlled by it anymore. You now have free will." And you give them the same choice. Do you want to go up into the light and be, healed up and purified and go to that? Or do you want to just stay dark and go somewhere else? That's fine too. You got the choice. And that's the gist of the protocol. There's a wonderful book that I learned all this from called The Others Within Us. And it's from a veteran IFS practitioner who's one of the main trainers in the IFS organization. And he'd been doing this entity clearing work for like 10 years before he wrote the book. And, It's very amazing. If you want to learn that, that's an amazing book to learn about that from. Again, the others within us. So that's a broad description of IFS broadly, and then a more particular description of the protocol. This one gentleman, this is not official IFS teaching with the entity stuff. This is one guy who came up with the technique, and the founder of IFS, Dick Schwartz, even wrote the foreword for his book. Says, "Hey, we don't teach this, but this might be interesting. Check it out." And that's probably enough about that. Let me oh, I've already talked about merging with something. That's one of the simplest practices, as I said already, is if you're in your awakened self and something dark is messing, just go merge with the dark thing. And again, as I said, it will either leave or transmute to love and light. Okay, that's enough repetition on that. All right, so we're closing in on 90 minutes. This doesn't have a hard stop there. When I thought about this, I thought we might even go a couple hours. But I also will kind of feel the vibe and see how long we want to go. I'm actually feeling the energy starting to feel a little bit more like ending energy. So let me just check and see if we have any other questions or comments. It's been fabulous. I mean, I've loved all the interaction, wonderful questions, wonderful sharings. I'm really delighted with this event, and I'll be proud to post it on my YouTube page and on my little Awaken, Heal, and Thrive podcast feed. So anyone else with a question or comment? Yes, Stu.
Not for me, but I had a friend that was on the call earlier.
Okay.
And she said she didn't want others' negative energy to come into her space.
Sure.
And I had told her about you setting a container, and such. So she's a little relieved about that
Okay.
she'll know next time. But she had a question about, when you were being attacked, if you thought that the person was attacking you maybe because they were jealous of you, or maybe your powers of awakening and such. And so I'm trying to ask just to give her a response, and I'm going to send her to your YouTube channel afterwards as well.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I had a client earlier today where I told the story. I honestly don't remember if I already said this earlier, but if so, I'll risk repeating myself. The shaman who I got awakening with, who himself had not awakened yet, and I sensed jealousy that I had attained it before he, who had worked so hard, got there. And then I stopped working with him. So again, I said there's different theories about why he attacked me twice in other people's ceremonies. One is he was jealous and pissed off, and he was just lashing out in anger, trying to mess with me, just getting revenge or whatever dark motive would have been the case if that was true. Another possible story is he was acting sort of on the side of love and light, saying, "Yay, Benjamin awoke. Now he needs to be tested to see if he can hold that awakening under this challenging circumstance." So another story one could tell is he was actually, giving me an appropriate testing and initiation process to see if, given that level of psychic attack, I could hold the awakening consistently without that. I don't mean consistently even under attack. So I don't know which story is true. I have no idea. And it doesn't really matter because I was able to hold the awakening either way. And whether he had dark motivation or he was just giving me appropriate testing for someone who'd worked with him for so many years, I don't know. But again, as I said earlier, in the context of what's the great scheme of what's happening, it doesn't really matter as long as you have a understanding of what to do. The more, I will add one new piece, the more I've awakened, the less I have to know why about anything. To me, I've got to the point where it's enough to know that my divine is guiding me to do something. And the why, I've learned, may be so far beyond what my human mind can even grasp. I don't ask why nearly as much as I used to. I just say, okay, I'm guided, I'll do it, it feels right, and that's enough. Because for a lot of the stuff I'm getting into now, there is no why. There's just the isness of it and the guidance to take an appropriate action.
Very
So,
good answer. I'll pass that along. And
okay.
it made me think of I don't know if it was Einstein or someone. They said that you have to learn the rules of the game, and then you can play better than anyone else.
Yeah, the quote I know him for is, "You can't solve a problem at the level it was created. You got to solve it at the next level up." Is
Okay, yeah,
maybe a
that
related
applies
quote?
as well.
Yeah. So that other quote I had not heard before. But yeah, I can promise you this: if you're awakened, if you're consistently in your divinity, you'll play the human game a whole lot more skillfully than the people who are not awakened. It's a tremendous advantage. And if you're on the love and light side, then you'll use that advantage to uplift everyone. In other words, you'll be more powerful and more effective. And if you're a love and light and your goal is to be the rising tide that lifts all the boats, then everyone on the side of love and light is going to benefit from your power.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you, Stu. Annie.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Benjamin. So I have a question about shamanic breath work
Okay.
and journeying, because I have taken quite a few of the breathwork courses that you host, and my personal experience is I have this beautiful embodied experience, which feels wonderful, but I don't have the experience of a journey. So I'm very curious about the journeying part and how that what that experience is about.
Okay. I'm going to answer this briefly because it's a little off the topic that we're on
Yeah.
tonight. But what she's referring to, there's over a dozen shamanic breathwork recordings in our Awakening Plus membership, and we do a new one live every quarter. I'm a trained and certified shamanic breathwork facilitator, and this is where you have this music mix already set up, and it starts really loud and intense and rhythmic and driving and stirs up the heavy stuff to clear it away. And then eventually it gets more and more gentle and subtle and finally ends super etheric and floaty. And the idea is to be doing strong breathing. This is based on holotropic breath work as its an ultimate origin. And the idea is that you may go into a journey and, have inner experiences of various kinds spontaneously. Some people do. Honestly, when I do breath work, I really don't do inner journeying anymore, but my body shakes a lot and I get a lot of heavy energy clearing.
Yeah.
So I personally don't journey either when I do those mixes. But it's, in a scenario like that, you'll get what you need. The cool thing about a shamanic breathwork container is that it allows your inner wisdom to give you what you most need in that context, whether that's a psychedelic inner journey of some kind, even though you haven't taken a substance, or just a sense of physical cleansing. It'll be whatever it needs to be.
Okay. Okay, that clarifies it. So it's not that I'm doing it incorrectly.
Oh, not at all.
It's just okay. Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it reminds me, I remember one time I was in Peru doing one of the ayahuasca ceremonies in that dieta that goes over 2 weeks. And it was very unusual, but I had a purely physical ceremony. My body shook for hours. I mean, the medicine go there and shaking specific body parts in specific ways. And it seemed like it was all to clear something out of my left thigh ultimately. But there was no visions at all. It was a purely shake it out ceremony. It was, purely a physical experience. So that can happen even in ayahuasca ceremonies. So yeah, I'm full of these weird little ayahuasca stories. Thank you. That's a great question, Annie. See, Beth said this was wonderful. Thank you so much. Glad you had a good time, Beth. So obviously we've gone a little past 9:30. The closing time is uncertain. So if anyone needs, I see a lot of people have left. So yeah, if you need to exit early, just ask the allies to ease you out. But I'll let this come to a natural close. But Laura's here. Hi, Laura.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, the last few months have been an interesting journey. And I guess the thing that I want to speak to the most is my husband is a naturalized citizen. And when Trump won, he's been very active with the Democratic Party. And he's like, I read that Trump was going to go after even naturalized citizens to deport them. And he said, well, of course. He says, because it's a lot easier to find the documented ones than the undocumented ones. Like, holy crap. So I was living with a lot of fear as to, what was going to happen with my family.
Mm.
And just a lot of things. And safety was just a big concern for me for all these months. And asking, do we need to move? Is there somewhere we can go to be safe? And um, it led me on an interesting little journey, but it kind of came to a head last month. And it started with during Holy Week, and they were showing a lot of pictures about the El Salvador Gulag, and it was bringing up a lot of the memories from when I was trafficked. Um, I could just really identify with their experience, and it was really activated me in a very strong way, and I was struggling all week.
Mm.
And little by little, I was led to different things that helped. And then by the Saturday, I had a healing session with Benjamin, and um, for the first time ever, I was shaking, and I felt like I was like about to pass out or something. And I'm like, am I even gonna make it through this? After I listened to the recording, what I realized was I was remembering a time when I was little, that I either died or came pretty close, and that's probably what I was experiencing more than anything in my body at this time in that moment. But it led to a place where I finally got peaceful, and I was thinking, oh, great, I've processed the trauma, and we're on the other side, and I'm back in that peaceful place. And Benjamin said, way to go, keeping processing the trauma. I said, what? I'm not feeling anything. And that's when Benjamin said, I was so fully in my divinity by that point that I could hold it all easily. And then I started receiving messages from my guides that I wasn't really a little tiny portion of what I was processing was my own. But what I was actually processing was the trauma of all the individuals on the planet at one time. I thought, well, that was a little extreme. I
Whoa.
wasn't sure I bought that one. But Benjamin said, yeah, I'm kind of getting the same thing. Because I found my higher self was saying, past, present, and future, we're covering it all. I'm like, holy crap. Um, and so that was a really huge up level for me in my awakening. It took me to a whole new level. And for like a couple weeks, I could go back to the memory of what that felt like to be in my divinity like that. And it became so clear. I was hearing a lot of light workers saying, "Oh yeah, I'm doing great because I'm just not paying attention to anything. And I'm just staying in my own lane and I'm fine." And that was really bothering me because one of the reasons I didn't want to let go of the suffering of those people in El Salvador is because I didn't want to not stop caring.
Mm.
I didn't want them to be forgotten. I didn't want their suffering to be for nothing and they're just sitting there. I wanted to be actively participating, but I was led to a better way to do that. And I realized that that's the level of work we can attain right now is if you keep working on your divinity, on your awakening, you can get to a place where you can hold the trauma for, if not the world, at least, your country or whatever, and hold it easily and be in your divinity and yet be actively helping to heal all the suffering that's happening. And I was really inspired by that. But then it was a couple weeks later that the safety issue came up again. And it was so interesting because this time I was with a friend who was really good at holding space for me. And she kept saying every time we'd meet, it's like, there is no place that's safe. And that really bothered at least one of my
Mhm.
parts. And I finally just erupted and I just started crying but I gotta be safe, and how can I do my work if I'm not safe and all this stuff. But the cool thing was, we got it all out. And since then, I've not been triggered by what Trump's doing or by what all the government stuff that's happening. I follow it still, but I'm not reacting to it the way I was before. Before, I would get upset about it and then I'd have to like talk to my guides and figure things out. But now I can just see that for me, what I'm seeing happening right now is that um, enough of us have gotten to a place of awakening that it's threatening evil, and that the reason all of this is happening and it's so loud is because it's on its way out. And I see that because of the healing work that I was involved with for like 40 plus years. Um, the one of the things we were taught was that when in the course of a healing, if a patient suddenly has an onset of symptoms, so it looks like they've gone 4 steps back, um, that's actually a sign of progress because it means it's on the way out. And so I've had a couple instances with my guides where I was able to see this really clearly, that, evil gets loudest when it's most threatened. And that's the take I have on what's going on right now. I know different people have different experiences, and that's why we all share them, because one resonates with people more than others. But I just thought I'd get my 2 cents in there. So that's what I have to say.
Wow, that's wonderful, Laura. Thank you. Those are really wise words you've shared. Thank you for blessing us with that. Wow. The vibration, I don't know if y'all can feel, but the vibration just got so much more wonderful because of what Laura has just shared and the consciousness she held while she shared it. I'm just going to soak that in for a second. Thank you. Woo. All right. Anyone else got something they want to ask or speak? If not, I'll quickly catch up with the chat. The Piera put a book recommendation. It's let's see, Apocalypse Yajnavalkya Revelations Concerning Humanity, looks like the title. Fascinating. And Jeannie said, thank you, Benjamin, for the interesting discussion that may put some people's minds at ease concerning their own ability to bring in help when they need it. Angie said, Laura, when it gets too intense, you can request not to transmute the collective energy on any certain time or day, or just ask for one a day or whatever you can handle. And then Stu said, thanks for sharing, Laura. Very interesting. Cool. Thanks. This is typical of Awakening Plus. There's always members, helping and supporting other members. And I'm glad we've developed such a beautiful community spirit. All right. Are we done? Anyone else got a question or comment? Let's leave a moment for anyone else who wants to jump in. Laura.
There was actually one piece I forgot that someone reminded me.
Okay.
That I wanted to mention. I went to visit a friend a few days ago. She's a light worker, but she's been really isolating herself and feeling really isolated and down about her ability to serve and whether she's even supposed to serve anymore, which I think a lot of people are going through, because we're also changing. And what we're being called to do is changing for a lot of light workers right now too, I've noticed. So what was really interesting was it was funny. She's like, the left side is like for stuff to come in and the right side of the body is for stuff to go out. And I had mentioned to her that when I had that session with Benjamin, I actually asked him, look, like, what do you see on the left side? And he said, lots of heavy energy. And I was like, well, what do you see on the right side? Light? I was like, oh. And it was in that moment when I shared that with her, she got it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. That she realized that the heaviness she's been feeling, number one, it wasn't that she was going backwards, is that she was spiraling upwards and just because the spiral idea is, you're at one place and then you progress a little bit and you end up in a very similar place, but a couple levels up. And so she's realized, oh, I'm just revisiting something similar, but at a higher level to call me to go higher. I'm like, awesome, right. Well done. And then the other thing she figured out was, oh my gosh, that's why we feel so heavy sometimes. It's because those of us who have that soul contract to help process all of the negative energy on on Earth, we're doing stuff on other people's behalf. And she's like, oh, so when I'm feeling heavy, it's not me. It's that I'm because she could see what was happening was the negative energy or the heavy energy was coming through the left side of my body and being transmuted and then being sent out in light. So that was the thing I wanted to mention is if you're feeling heaviness, it could be that you're simply processing energy for others, but just pay attention to can you, I don't know how to know this. I can't see it. So I need people like her to tell me what the heck's going on. But, but yeah, so I just wanted to say that too, because that might be helpful to people.
Yeah. Oh, I've got to share a carry-on story from that. Early in my ayahuasca ceremonies, ayahuasca started having me transmute the heavy energy of other people in the ceremony. It's not never asked, but it just kind of started happening. In ayahuasca ceremonies, you're taught and trained and evolved not because of a human teacher, but the medicine itself gives you the information and experience you need to kind of go through your process. And the most dramatic example of heavy energy processing is I'm in the ceremony, and in my vision, I see, this is not in the physical world, but in my visionary world, a dump truck is backing out toward me, beep, 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 beep. And I thought, what the heck is this? And then it starts, the bed starts raising. I think, oh my God, it's a huge pile of all the shit people have been clearing in this ceremony. Oh my God. And it got me, and boom. It's like, it all just dumps on me like a huge pile of shit, and it's like I'm covered over with all this heavy energy from everyone else. And I said, okay, she's taught me how to do it. I guess it's time to transmute. And I fired up the old transmutation energy in the belly, and it took about a half hour, but every little bit of that got processed through me, and it all went down to earth and got composted. So that was, I think ayahuasca had a kind of a sense of humor on that one. But yeah, many people I know are doing processing of heavy energy for others. Again, the more awakened you get, the more you come to that Ramana Maharshi attitude. There are no other people. There's just other me's out there that are in different bodies. And so you become a little less territorial about whose stuff is it. And if, my own attitude is if heavy energy shows up in my field, it's mine to process. I can't even tell if it originated from the Benjamin personality or from somewhere else. And I honestly don't care anymore. It just shows up. I have the divine clear it. And because, as I've said, I have the divine do everything for Benjamin, because Benjamin on his own is pretty insignificant and powerless. But I can always call these beautiful divine helpers who always come when they're called. And because I just stay passive and let them do the work through me, they can clear just about anything. So, and then when on my own it doesn't work, I get human helpers. Right before I did this event, Spirit Song, I went up to her and I said, could I have your blessing, please? And she took about 2 or 3 minutes and said some amazing words and flowed some amazing energy to me and got me all, sparkly up so I could do this better. So it also have people we can be helped by. Spirit Song is my life partner, in case anyone doesn't know that. All right. Anything else, guys? Okay. Let me, as we close, if you're not a member of Awakening Plus, you're getting a flavor. Most of the people who've spoken tonight are members of Awakening Plus, and you might get a sense of the consciousness they're holding, which is pretty spectacular these days. So if you would like some support, that's what Awakening Plus does. You can learn more by simply going to awakeningplus.com. That's awakeningplus.com. There's a detailed information page there that will tell you all about us. And you can try us for $1 for your first month, no risk. And if you want to hang around, it's usually $19 a month, but you can ask for the scholarship rate of just $9 a month if you can't do 19. There's other membership levels too if you want to get into the complexities of that. But we're here to help support your healing and awakening and help it go faster. And also to be one possible source of that community support that we all do need. So if you're welcome to check it out if you wish. Spirit Song, hey.
Hey, I was having a hard time unmuting and all that stuff. I wanted to just say what an honor it is to be on this journey with you.
Oh.
And how wonderful it is to have people in our lives. Not everyone is so fortunate to have a being in their life day to day that is on the path and that you can turn to. We say a lot, we've got each other's back. We're always there for each other, but having this interconnection, as you talked about tonight, is so important, going to be more and more important for all of us as we go along. So if you don't have the good fortune of being with someone in your home that you can turn to, and even no matter this, I hope this isn't too real or too honest, but I don't think It will be, no matter how good we are with using all these amazing tools, we still have times that we have to process a little deeper. And if we don't have another being there who can do that with us, or even if the other being has triggered something in us, and as Benjamin has said over and over, we know that's us, not them. I heard one time, what you think of me is none of my business. And there's some real truth to that, because it's whatever the person perceives at the moment that they're verbalizing to you. But do find other people that are high vibration that you can reach out to, and have at least one or two of those in your lives, or look for groups of people that are near you that you can share that kind of love with. And it makes so much difference. And I'm just honored, Benjamin, for all you do for all of us, to be able to be a witness to all the hours and hours and hours you spend in preparation, in finding new ways, something more that you can do to bless and uplift others. And just wanted to say thanks for that.
Oh, well, thank you, sweetheart. And I'll give a shout out right back to Spirit Song. She's pulled my ass out of the fire many times. There's been times I started getting covered over and didn't know it. And she would help me see what was happening and clean me up. She's an amazing healer herself. She's a deeply awakened being. I'm very fortunate to be with her. And yeah, so I am profoundly lucky to be with her. And I'm not shy about saying it. A few years ago, I was starting to have some mild cognitive decline. And she was my former romantic partner. We never thought we'd get together again. And she saw what was happening, and knowing what it might cost her personally to be with me if I was really spiraling down into dementia, she came back together with me anyway. And fortunately, I was able to reverse and come back to a much better cognitive functioning. But I'm pretty sure if she had not stepped in to save me at that point, I would not even be functioning now. I'd be drooling in a hospital bed somewhere or something. So Spirit Song, I think, literally saved my life and helped me to keep functioning on the light worker path. So yeah, we all need folks to help us out, people. Interdependence is a real thing here. And I absolutely would not be doing what I'm doing here if Spirit Song had not helped me, not just then, but in so many other ways, in so many instances. So thank you, sweetheart.
Sure, and we do that on a daily basis. It's just part of being. Whoever is in your space day to day, no matter how highly evolved they may be, there's more opportunity for more triggering of things within us that have not been healed yet. And I also heard a long time ago someone say, and I really believe this, when you're with someone in a close relationship, when something comes up that is not feeling comfortable, instead of looking at it like, what's wrong with you or what's wrong with us, what do we have to heal now? What is this opportunity? What is this blessing asking to be healed now? And if you do that, and there's no blame, no shame, nobody's right, nobody's wrong, simply something has revealed itself to be healed. Wow, what a difference that makes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You betcha.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Those are great insights, Spirit Song.
Yeah.
All right. So again, I opened the container before we started the event, and we've got dozens of allies here. So let me just formally, this takes just about a minute, so it won't take too long. Pachamama Kia Wiracochan Inti Queen Ichi Beloved Divine Allies, thank you so much for your beautiful support during this event. Thanks for keeping it all bright and shiny for us. Beautiful allies, as we close, go if you must, stay if you will. Those of you still working with anyone who's been part of this event, please remain with those people for as long as it serves their highest good. Thank you. Beautiful allies, where would it serve highest good to go? What would it serve highest good to do? What would it serve highest good to communicate, and to whom? Okay, that closes it. Thanks again to everybody. And thanks for all the wonderful comments that came in there at the end. I won't read them all, but they're all just, grateful for the event. One last time, so many people spoke up, asked questions, shared their wisdom. I love it when that happens. So thanks for making this a beautiful co-creation of shared wisdom tonight. Again, this will go up not just in the Awakening Plus member archive. It'll go on the Awaken, Heal, and Thrive podcast feed. It'll go up on my YouTube channel. You can just search Benjamin Bernstein. I think the YouTube handle is, what is it? Benjamin Bernstein Podcasts is what you would search to get to that. So anyhow, check it out if you want. So grateful to you all, and many, many blessings. Good night. So that's the Zoom event we did a few days ago. And right now, would you like to speed up your healing and awakening as part of an uplifting community of dedicated awakeners like you? Then check out Awakening Plus, the affordable online membership that can put your personal transformation into high gear. You can choose from about 15 Zoom calls every month, as well as an ever-expanding archive of more than 800 events that can profoundly improve your life. You'll also benefit from in-depth courses and much more to help you awaken, heal, and thrive. To find out more, click the link in the show notes or visit awakeningplus.com. That's awakeningplus.com. I mentioned I was going to announce a free membership winner. This winner will get a full year of Awakening Plus, and the winner is the only Janice with an email at outlook.com. If that is you, Janice, pop me an email, benjamin@astroshaman.com, and we will get you set up with your free year of Awakening Plus. Congratulations. And for you, thanks for being here. Once again, I'm Benjamin Bernstein, and we are wrapping up. Please leave me a 5-star rating, review, or comment wherever you're getting this episode so that others can also awaken, heal, and thrive. And be sure to click the link in the show notes for a chance to win one free year of my Awakening Plus online membership. Thanks again for spending this time with me, and be sure to stay subscribed so you're notified about new episodes. With my irregular release schedule, you never know when I might drop one, like this one. I wish you infinite blessings.